So good morning, everyone. I'm Marco Saladini. I'm the Italian Trade Commissioner here in Canada. I will use English for this first part because it's a common language. And I welcome everyone. The Italian Trade Agency, for those who do not know it, is a governmental agency that tries to promote trade and investments overseas, so between Italy and other countries. And we started in 2017 a procurement desk in Montreal that helps connecting companies to opportunities in the area of public procurement, also private procurement and subcontracting. Italian companies willing to bid in Canada. I think that's a win-win. More competition, higher quality, more opportunities to do business for Italian qualifying companies. So I think it was a winning choice. And why do we care about energy transition? Well, you know, the estimates of the impact of energy transition investments are in the tens of billions of dollars. And yes, there have been ups and downs in terms of speed, political will, and many other factors. But the transition is steadily moving forward. And coming from a country with a diversified range of power sources and a vibrant energy market, we believe that those factors, in addition to the long-standing tradition in industrial engineering and design, make a difference in overseas markets. So we think that those experiences, that background, that setup in the market will enable companies to do well in Canada as well. Of course, we need to understand Canada in today's webinar, besides being an occasion to do so, to take a snapshot of the current EV and charging landscape here in this beautiful country. Is also a good opportunity to exchange ideas among participants. So I encourage debating, asking questions via the chat that everybody has, and ultimately making the most of this opportunity. Thanks to our partners at Electric Autonomy who organized the show, to all the speakers that we have today, and to Paolo Benzi and James Johnson in our team. Enjoy.
Buongiorno a tutti, siamo qui in diretta dal Salone a Toronto EV and Charging Expo 2025. Abbiamo pensato di creare questo webinar in un formato speciale presso la fiera, cogliendo l'occasione di avere ospiti 5 speaker di questo evento. Quindi questa occasione si verte sulla tematica della transizione energetica, con il particolare focus della ricarica dei veicoli elettrici e ibridi in Canada. I 5 ospiti che abbiamo oggi intorno al tavolo sono 5 esponenti del settore della ricarica dei veicoli elettrici, quindi abbiamo Jason Scoltiti della BC Hydro, fornitore di energia elettrica per la provincia del British Columbia. Poi segue Mike Duclef, presidente di Alpitronic Americas, con base in Charlotte, North Carolina, con una buona espansione anche nel mercato canadese. Finalmente Michael Aburi di Schneider Electric e si occupa di infrastrutture di ricarica, energie alternative. Abbiamo Gabriela Favaron della 7Gen e finalmente Michael Cutcliffe della VinFast, auto elettriche vietnamite. L'ICE dà il supporto alle aziende italiane anche in Canada e ovviamente potete trovare sulla pagina di ice.it le pagine dei servizi alle aziende. L'Osservatorio gare appalti è un desk che si trova presso l'ICE Montreal, si occupa della segnalazione e monitoraggio degli appalti pubblici canadesi. Il Canada offre la collaborazione con altri paesi con oltre 10 accordi bilaterali, in particolare ricordiamo il CETA, che è l'accordo con l'Unione Europea, e questo dà un vantaggio anche alle aziende italiane nell'accesso agli appalti pubblici canadesi. Quindi il Canada occupa una posizione superiore alla media dei paesi dell'OECD per quello che riguarda la percentuale della spesa pubblica per gli appalti. Gli appalti pubblici canadesi vertono diversi settori, in particolare oggi tratteremo quella dell'energia elettrica, e in particolare la ricarica dei veicoli elettrici. Quindi ricordiamo, l'Osservatorio svolge una funzione importante di monitoraggio e segnalazione delle opportunità in Canada, oltre alla questione delle newsletter e dei servizi alle aziende italiane. Passiamo al webinar di oggi, la tematica transizione energetica con il focus sui sistemi di ricarica dei veicoli elettrici e ibridi plug-in. Vi do solo un dato principale: nei prossimi 25 anni, fino al 2050, è previsto un raddoppio del fabbisogno di energia elettrica in Canada, quindi da 600 TWh a 1200, e come si vede dal grafico fornito dal Canada Energy Regulator, la percentuale, la porzione relativa ai trasporti è la principale componente e causa di questo aumento, oltre a un fabbisogno crescente del fabbisogno di idrogeno. Quindi la value chain, la catena del valore che parte dal produttore di energia da fonti tradizionali o clean, che riguarda appunto la trasmissione, distribuzione e grids di energia elettrica, si focalizza sui sistemi di ricarica elettrica con diverse dimensioni dei caricatori, quindi livello 1 domestico, livello 2 commerciale o domestico con più potenza, il numero 3 con l'energia a corrente diretta, corrente continua, quindi sono i supercharger per la carica rapida. Ovviamente c'è un grosso sviluppo a livello di software, a livello di gestione, a livello di pagamenti, quindi lo scenario per l'utente dell'auto elettrica, che vediamo nella terza colonna, non è solamente collegare la presa alla propria macchina, ma dal punto di vista organizzativo ci sono tanti livelli da sviluppare a livello di sistemi di ricarica. Altri consumatori di elettricità ovviamente sono quelli tradizionali, residenze, aziende, uffici, che diventeranno comunque sempre più sede di colonne di ricarica e come oggetto di sviluppo anche di ripresa di energia, nel senso che le batterie dei veicoli elettrici possono essere utilizzate sia per ricaricare sia per scaricare, cioè rifornire energia elettrica alla rete. In questo diagramma si vede un po' tutto lo scenario, diciamo, della catena del valore e delle problematiche di sviluppo a livello di infrastrutture, dalla produzione di energia alla distribuzione all'utilizzazione finale. In Quebec, in Canada, in Ontario, in BC, British Columbia, ci sono grossi hub di sviluppo delle colonne di ricarica. Qui sono alcuni nomi non esaustivi, diciamo, dei produttori di questo sistema di infrastrutture, e quindi si vede che negli ultimi 4-5 anni la tendenza è in aumento esponenziale. In Canada, dal punto di vista pubblico, esistono molti progetti di aiuti finanziari che riguardano appunto sia lo sviluppo e la sensibilizzazione delle infrastrutture per carburanti alternativi, sia per i veicoli a emissione zero, sia anche per quello che riguarda l'idrogeno, che non è oggetto di questo webinar. Ricordo un punto importante: quando si parla di veicoli a emissione zero non si parla solo di veicoli elettrici o ibridi, ma anche veicoli alimentati da combustibili alternativi come l'idrogeno. Quindi qui ci sono alcuni numeri grafici che riportano la tendenza che vi abbiamo detto poco fa, ma vi faremo avere comunque i PDF delle presentazioni, quindi ve le troverete nell'email. Bene, io non perderei più tempo per passare la parola ai nostri relatori di oggi. Il primo a iniziare sarà Jason della BC Hydro, e quindi passo la parola a Jason. Grazie.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Scoltetti. I'm a senior key account manager at BC Hydro. BC Hydro is a Crown corporation in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and my portfolio includes our fleet electrification program offers, as well as working with all of the major fast charger networks in the province of BC. So what is BC Hydro? We're a provincial Crown corporation utility. We service 95% of the province's electrical supply, and over 5 million customers in the province. We are a hydroelectric utility, so we have low-cost, clean electricity. And interestingly, when it comes to electrification and electric vehicles, we are very competitive because we have very high gas and diesel costs. There's lots of carbon taxes. And so when you look at our low-cost, clean electricity, we really do have strong total cost of ownership opportunities for electrification projects. We also at BC Hydro have our own fast charging network, a vast network of EV chargers in the province that helps influence our public and our citizens to adopt EVs into their vehicles, and gives them an opportunity to make sure that they can get anywhere in the province with a fast charger available to them. BC is really attractive market for electrification, and especially for electric vehicles. There's many provincial and federal funding programs available, as well as low carbon fuel credits that really help with the cost of ownership. So reasons why deployment in British Columbia really makes sense. Like I mentioned, we have a clean BC Hydro electricity supply in the province that helps our customers really reduce their emissions and carbon footprint, which is aligned with our provincial government's goals to reduce emissions in the province. We've seen a very high uptake of EV sales in the province, close to 200,000 zero-emission vehicles now on British Columbia roads, and year over year that EV adoption continues to increase. Most of our public and most of our residents and industry is concentrated in the Lower Mainland, which, if you know, Vancouver, British Columbia has a pretty mild climate. So again, another reason why EVs perform really well and are an attractive market for deployment in the province. I mentioned the high cost of fuel, which is unfortunate for anyone driving a gasoline or diesel vehicle, but quite advantageous if they're driving an electric vehicle. Low carbon fuel credits, like I mentioned. And I would say with respect to, especially when we're considering things like fleet electrification and commercial truck deployment, we're a small market. And so that makes us pretty agile compared to other markets. We have lots of opportunity to help our customers electrify their fleet vehicles as well. And like I mentioned, we have one of the largest public charging networks owned and operated by BC Hydro, the utility. A little bit about that fast charger network. We have, I think these numbers are actually out of date. We have, I think, close to 160 sites now and 600 connectors currently in operation. And working with our provincial government, our goal is to have 3,000 ports or connectors by the end of 2030. We have a lot of pride in this network. We have a 24/7 call center available so that drivers have somebody to call if they have an issue with the station reliability, if they're having a problem getting their vehicle connected. There's always somebody available to help them with that service. And back in October of 2024, we were able to announce what we call the electric highway. And that means that anywhere in the province that you can drive, there is a maximum of 150 kilometers between fast chargers in our network. And so working with the province, we really came up with a plan to accommodate those more remote locations, especially in the north and the west of the province, to make sure that EV drivers have the opportunity to charge within 150 kilometers of another fast charger. That team, our team that deploys this network, won a mention of excellence in 2024. And now we're looking at not only expanding this for passenger vehicle charging, we're now looking at opportunities for commercial vehicle and truck charging at new sites as well, to leverage our existing network and build out potentially opportunities for commercial truck vehicle charging as well. A little bit about our fleet program. So not only do we, help with passenger vehicles, but BC Hydro is very interested in helping the commercial trucking sector and our industrial and commercial customers electrify their fleet vehicles as well. So some of the pictures here are some customers that we have supported in their fleet electrification journey. Mterra is 8 electric refuse waste collection trucks operating on Vancouver Island. Loblaws and Cisco have Daimler Freightliner E-Cascadia Class 8 electric trucks operating the Lower Mainland and Victoria on Vancouver Island to do grocery regional distribution. The Brick is a retailer here in Canada that does furniture and appliances. They have Lion 6 box trucks that are electric that help deliver those things to people's homes. And then C-SPAN is one of our big port customers. They've got electric, actually they've got electric tug vehicles as well, so vessels, but they've got coach buses that they've electrified for their employees to shuttle back and forth to work. So lots of diversity in the fleet customers that we work with. And just a bit about that program, BC Hydro offers those fleet electrification customers an opportunity to do an EV ready fleet plan. And so that's providing funding for them to engage a consultant to do a fleet electrification roadmap and study to understand what is possible with their existing fleet, what the costs look like, and what the charging and infrastructure plan would be. We then follow that with what we call an EV fleet infrastructure incentive, where BC Hydro helps support the costs, the capital costs of building a new electrical system at a customer's depot to support charging operations for their fleet vehicles. And then we also offer pilot project funding. So we work with customers here to do any early stage testing of an electric vehicle fleet or a new technology that they want to try, maybe not with committed to the full infrastructure and costs. So we have a lot of customers going through this program right now, and we're really motivated to help those customers reduce their emissions and adopt electric vehicles into their fleet operations. That program is now expanding to look at really how can we help customers not only electrify their fleet vehicles, but how do we do it that's an efficient way for us as the utility to help create better opportunities for efficient electrification of their vehicles. So we have programs that are called demand side management, which are managed charging. Can we work with the fleet electrification customer to control the charging loads of their vehicles, the time of when they're charging, and that can help us also balance and manage our distribution grid as well. We have now technical solutions that we're working with and program offers that include energy storage, so battery storage systems that actually quite complement fleet electrification nicely, as well as other demand storage, demand side management capacity programs. We're looking at a lot of new charging technologies as well as part of this portfolio, things like induction charging and other customer opportunities. And we're doing a lot of, like I mentioned, a lot of research and planning for public truck charging hubs. Of course, everybody is interested in vehicle to grid or vehicle to X technologies, and this is something we're taking very seriously at BC Hydro. We did the first test of a commercial school bus back 2 years ago, actually in 2023, to test that system. And we're currently exploring pilot opportunities with our customers to test vehicle to grid technologies. Some of the benefits of fleet electrification in BC, I think I mentioned a lot of these already. So very attractive total cost of ownership, given low electricity costs and high diesel and gas costs. And I think most of us that work in this space know that electric vehicles themselves have much higher efficiency than gas or diesel vehicles and much lower maintenance costs. And we're seeing that now with our customers that are electrifying their fleet vehicles, as well as of our passenger EVs and the residential drivers in the province as well. We have so many funding program opportunities currently available in BC. We have the BC Hydro programs that I mentioned, but we have provincial programs as well that help support the infrastructure costs, the chargers themselves. There's rebates for chargers, and then there's additional programs that help rebate the electric vehicles as well. Low carbon fuel credits, we could have a whole presentation on low carbon fuel credits, but basically in BC, we have our own provincial credits as well as federal credits. And those give an opportunity to actually make a profit on the electricity that you're using to fuel your vehicle. And we have very specific rates that we offer for fleet electrification customers as well. And just generally, I think most people that understand EVs know that there's a huge amount of environmental and societal benefits. You're displacing fossil fuels, so thereby you're reducing emissions in the province. And I think sometimes it gets a little bit overlooked, but significant reduction in air pollution and noise pollution. So there on the picture, you could see one of the electric refuse trucks. They don't make any noise. They don't emit any air pollution at all. And so obviously the people that live in those neighborhoods for those collection services are very, very happy with them being in service. And that air pollution and reduction and the noise pollution really has positive impacts to health and well-being as well. And then finally, I'll speak a little bit from a utilities perspective. What's important to us when you're looking at electric vehicles and electrification? Really, it's talking to us early. Early engagement is very important for us to be able to actively plan and look at what your organization is planning for the load growth and the electrification potential, but also to help guide you along the process of getting connected and how that works at BC Hydro. If you need new service, provide guidance on the fleet planning or the connection of your project, give you guidance on the resources and tools available, all the funding programs available. We offer very early stage site assessment without any commitments or costs. And really anything that a customer might need from a utility perspective, that's something that our team can definitely provide. And so we really help elevate the message that it's very important to have conversations with your utility at any stage in this, but very early is the best. Even when you're conceptually thinking about a project or an idea, reach out, have a conversation with your utility and understand what's involved and what opportunities also exist for you. So with that, I'll pass it on back to Paolo.
Grazie Jason per questa presentazione. Ora passiamo la parola a Mike. Mike Docklet, presidente di Appalti Americas. Grazie.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Mike and I'm leading the business for Alpatronic in the Americas. I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina. So Alpatronic was founded around 15 years ago by 4 university students. They all went to school together in Munich studying system development and power electronics. So the 4 founders of the company are still employees of the company. So from left to right, Andreas is the global CTO, Alessandro and Sigrid are in R&D, and Philip is the global CEO. So the 4 founders are employees of the company. They're also the only 4 shareholders of the company. This is something I think very unique, that we're still a privately held company by 4 employees, no outside equity and no outside bank debt, which is very unique actually in the EV charging infrastructure business. So head office is in Bolzano in Italian, or Bozen in German. As you know, South Tyrol is a very specific area. We like to say it's an area in the Alps where German precision, right, and engineering really meets Italian flair. And we think that's really a good way as well to think about Alpatronic. We're very good on the engineering side, but style, design, look and feel are very important for us. The main markets that we're serving today, automotive and e-mobility infrastructure. And we got there by kind of a journey. We started off doing power electronics, working with OEMs. We got into what's called power cycling for semiconductor. And then ultimately in 2018, we got into the EV charging, or EV fast charging business. So early on, really engineering is our DNA. We're an engineering company. Power electronics are what we do very well. We started off early with partners in Europe near Bolzano, so that's mainly for Daimler Truck and for BMW. We started by making power electronics components for the vehicles. So early on, we started to gain experience in both the EV industry as well as working with the automotives. And you can see a lot of the big names there on the right. Then we got into what's called power cycling services. So that's working with the semiconductor modules to test the durability and the life cycle analysis. So understanding what happens when we turn these on and off millions of times, trying to simulate 10 years of life in the future. So today, this is a very small piece of our business that we still actually do. So providing these power cycling services as well as test benches, but it's actually a very important point in the development of the company and how we've developed our EV charging infrastructure. In 2018, we decided to put together all of our experience working with automotive OEMs, working with power electronics, working in the EV industry, and putting together that knowledge from power cycling to build what we call the hypercharger, which is a DC or level 3 fast charger. We didn't actually expect to have the growth that we have today, and I'll share some numbers in a minute. So that came kind of unexpectedly, and it's really propelled us to be the market leader for DC fast charging in Europe. So our product portfolio, consists of two distinct classes of DC fast chargers. So on the left is what we call the all-in-one. So that means that power comes in the grid, maybe from BC Hydro at some point in the future, we'll see. Power comes in the bottom from the grid, where it is transformed from AC to DC, and then the DC power is dispensed from the cables. So on the left, those are standalone units. There's no other boxes, there's no other components hidden elsewhere. What you see is what you get. Then on the left, what we've recently launched back in February of this year is our distributed system. So distributed system consists of a power cabinet there, as you see on the right in the middle, up to 1 megawatt of power with power dispensers, which can be placed remotely. The reason that we went from an all-in-one to a distributed system, it's not a replacement, so it's not an or, but it's an and. Power needs are growing in size. New charging technology standards are coming out, like MCS, that's the megawatt charging standard to charge the large Class 8 vehicles, and these require more power. And we also see sites at our customers where they're requiring more and more dispensers. So the distributed system is a way to allow for future-proofing as well as new standards such as the MCS. So moving forward, we'll offer the entire portfolio, both the all-in-one and the distributed system. Now, we are, again, founded on the right side in Bolzano, Bozen, where we have the global headquarters. We do production for everywhere except for the Americas, service and warehousing. And then we've started to expand. We've more or less tapped all of the brain power, the R&D brain power in Bolzano. So we've had to expand out to Munich, to Bologna, to Bergamo, to find more and more R&D resources. In addition, we've set up sales offices now in certain regions, so in the UK, in France, in Denmark, also on the left in Australia. And then finally, we opened up in Q4 of 2023 our Americas headquarters. So we're based in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we house everything except manufacturing. Manufacturing in the US is done with a partner named Plexus, based in Wisconsin. So we have essentially a supply chain based in Europe, a supply chain based in the US, where we can, let's say, optimize for our customers. Now, why did we come to the US? It wasn't necessarily because we lacked business, being the market leader in Europe, but it was really from our customers. So our customers asked us, hey, we're expanding to the US, we're expanding to Canada. We would like to expand with you. Can you please open up? So we came to the US at probably the most busy time inside of the company, fulfilling other customer orders. But as we listened to our customers, it was the right move to make. Now, Canada, so I'm here sitting today in Toronto with colleagues on the panel in Canada. This is our next entry point. And also it's because of our customers. So the same customers that asked us to come to the US have now asked us to go to Canada. And we have said, yes, we'll come to Canada. So we'll be opening our business in Canada here at the end of 2025. Now, if you look at our team, we're still a smallish company, you know, going from a startup around 15 years ago, starting to be maybe more a medium company, so around 1,100 employees. And if you look at the employee growth chart there, you'll see that when we launched our charger, we were only 40 people in the company. So very, very lean team. And if you follow that growth up here it's employees, but you could also map our number of chargers shipped. You could also map the revenue. Everything grew in this very fast way. And here's probably my favorite slide. This shows you a picture of the deployment of our chargers in Europe. In the next round, we'll start to add what we have now in the Americas. But today we have over 75,000 ports installed globally, right? That's 75,000 ports or charging points globally. And just for a comparison, Tesla globally, including US, Europe, including fast and slow charging, has 60,000 ports. So we have not only more ports than Tesla does globally, but we have more fast charging ports, which makes us the market leader in DC level 3 fast charging technology. Now, the second bullet point there, and I won't go through all of them, is around the number of charging sessions. So we actually connect to all of our chargers in the field, and we record every single charging session. So to date, we have over 110 million charging sessions logged on our fleet. And we're actually collecting around 1 million sessions every 5 days. So that database keeps getting bigger and bigger. And just as another comparison, it took us several years to collect the first 1 million charging sessions on our fleet. And now we're collecting 1 million sessions more or less in 1 week. We work with a lot of different partners, both in the CPO space, that's a charge point operation space, oil and gas. You see a lot of oil and gas who are now moving from, let's say, liquid fuels, molecules to electrons. Utilities as well. We have colleagues here, as well as retail and fast food, and of course, OEMs. So this is a global view of the customer base. And of course, as we build our business more and more in the United States and in Canada, we will add more and more customers. And just to give you some examples of our flagship sites in the US, so this is photos taken from the US. So this is one site with Mercedes, one of our partners, who's also a partner in Europe. So we have similar sites with them in Europe. Another flagship site was a company called Iona. Iona is a joint venture of 8 automotive OEMs who have all put money together to fund a company, Iona, to basically build out a fast charging network in the US, rival to Tesla. And then finally, we have another customer in the US called Green Lane, which is there supporting fast charging for trucks and commercial vehicles. Here is their flagship site in Los Angeles. So that's all I wanted to share from you regarding slides. If anyone has some questions, we can answer them now in the text, or we can also take it towards the end.
Quindi passiamo la parola a Michael.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone.
Pardon?
Can you hear me?
Sì, prego.
Grazie. Ciao a tutti. Morning, everyone. Happy to be here with the Italian Trade Agency. So I'm Michael Uri, and I lead the mobility sector within Schneider Electric here in Canada. So let's start with the basic. Who's Schneider Electric? Let's see if it's going. Okay. It's quite similar to Alpatronics. We're a small company. We're about 160,000 employees in over 100 countries. And Schneider is currently present also in Italy. We have 6 manufacturing facilities. And what we do is we're a global energy management and automation leader. We are present in Canada for over a century now, and we have a solid force of about 2,500 employees with 450 engineers, and also 4 manufacturing sites and 4 R&D sites. And one of the R&D sites that we have in Victoria is where we develop our chargers specifically for R&D purposes, and we're working right now on the V2G in Victoria. All right. So what is it that we're seeing right now in the market, specifically in Canada? As we're raising awareness a lot on sustainability, and a lot of acknowledgement is increasing by, on one side, the transit passengers to have a cleaner environment, and also the high demand to electrify heavy and medium duty trucks. And this is compelling scientists, chemists, engineers to innovate into new technologies. And a good example that we're seeing a lot, unfortunately, there was an announcement, there's a delay. Honda was about to launch a manufacturing facility to produce solid state batteries here. Unfortunately, it's going to be delayed in 2 years. But there's new technologies pushing the boundaries to have more condensed and longer range batteries. So that is pretty good. Secondly, what we're saying is a lot of technology leaders are innovating into the infrastructure of the future to minimize the time users, and for operators to spend less time recharging and spending more time on the road, specifically when they have a huge total cost of ownership. They want to make sure, some of them on the private side, that they can have their return quickly. Thirdly, we're seeing an escalating I'm not going to say unmanaged demand for electricity across the nation, but it is truly placing significant pressure on local energy infrastructures. Thus, the new technologies, like we said, vehicle to grid or demand response solution to properly manage the energy is becoming more and more critical. Lastly, there's a varying pace here in Canada in terms of regulation, fundings, incentives among different jurisdictions, and it is impacting the transition to zero-emission vehicles. We have here in Canada ambitious deadlines to achieve these goals. Thus, it requires a whole ecosystem to work together to overcome this. On one side, on the power generation and the management of the energy, technology providers, governmental regulations, contractors, system integrators, etc. Second, we're also seeing a trend where the energy transition is reshaping the energy landscape. We're seeing the emergence of prosumers, which means in our own lingo, a consumer who can also produce its own energy. This shift represents a gradual move from a centralized to a distributed energy landscape. Also, what we're seeing is a shift from the demand of a simplistic product-based infrastructure to a demand for energy services and digital infrastructures. And this could be done through the integration of AI technologies to visualize and operate the infrastructure from a centralized, let's say, control. Let's see if the next slide is moving. Okay, let me see. Oh, sorry, did I want one back? One over, okay. And when it comes to fast, what we're seeing also in the fast charging hubs, the feedback is clear. First, time is money. For those who are operating trucks or any type of fleet, they need to be running more than one shift to maximize their ROI. And for that, the infrastructure has to be resilient, has to be efficient, has to be always available, and at the same time sustainable. And then we need to recognize that future-proofing and scaling is going to be critical, and there will be an impact also on the grid that we should definitely keep in mind. So how can we support that in the meantime? We're quite lucky in BC, we're quite lucky in Quebec, where we have clean, renewable energy called hydro, but in other provinces, they do not have that luxury. They have a mix of other sources of energy that might not be clean. Thus, I'll be explaining what are the solutions that Schneider are providing to overcome this. Now, we have a formula coming from an engineering company. We like the formula called electrify plus digitize, you can decarbonize. And for that, in terms of digitization, we have a solution called DELMS. So it's a dynamic energy and load management system dedicated for large fleets, I would say. So it's not a static disperse of energy. And then when it comes to smaller scale sites, retailers, at work, we're using a company called EV Connect that we acquired 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And Mike here was part of that adventure, let's say. Okay, now, what is truly EV Connect? It's a digital platform that can help first manage the loads and then distribute the energy to multiple chargers, be it for a charging network operator, sorry, where you can do the payments, you can visualize the energy used, etc., etc. So I'm not going to go too much into detail, but that solution right now is being deployed all over North America. It is used by a lot of network operators. Something that we're quite proud of. We do white labeling, so remove the EV Connect logo and we'll put any logo to support anyone who wants to operate a network, or even if it's a site, they want to put their own logo, they can do that. And of course, we offer services behind it, on-site support with 24/7 line. And then there's an app where you can find a lot of chargers that you can connect to. Second, Schneider is launching in a month, or the next month, let's say, our new charger, level 2, dedicated for commercial applications. That new charger will be integrated with a SIM card with EV Connect. So this way, if the fleet operators require a digital platform to manage their energy and to manage their costs, they can do it directly. If not, it is OCPP. They can connect to any other network. This is available. So that is coming up soon. I think it's quite exciting. Schneider Electric has multiple solutions for us. The charger, it is a great product. It's an add-on more than anything, and you will understand why we believe that it is an add-on for us, Schneider. We're not diminishing the essentiality of or the importance of the charger. But the way we see it is, if you want to have a site to electrify your fleet, the charger is the first thing that comes to all of us our mind, but there's more to that. There's the electrical infrastructure that goes behind it. Sometimes you need on-site generation through renewable. You can have solar, you can have on-site batteries to offset the load peaks, depending on the fees of the utility, if you want to offset that. So you can do that. So this is becoming more and more essential in certain areas. And even I think BC Hydro, you're saying you're starting to look into this, even though you have the capacity, even though you have the energy to provide it, but still it could be a great solution to reduce the total cost of ownership for the fleet operators. Second, what we call edge control. These are the platforms that Schneider has to properly operate and visualize the current situation of all the multiple assets. And then there's another layer where AI and services kick in, where suddenly through algorithms, you can have monthly reports or daily reports stating what is the status of your equipment, of your multiple assets in an agnostic way. It doesn't have to be a Schneider Electric equipment. So this way, you can see, you can have some predictive maintenance application to support you and reduce the cost to keep on making sure that your equipment are, in a good state of health. Now, all of these solutions, like I said earlier, they can be on-prem or on the cloud, and also for our chargers, everything will be OCPP, and some of them are also leveraging the new VDV senders that are used right now in Europe, that are coming mainly from Germany. And every component is cyber secured. And this is, I think, a topic that we need to be talking more and more. Why? Because these are critical infrastructure in a certain way. It's not an airport, but still, if we're talking about a transit fleet, it is critical. We want to make sure that these buses are running 24/7 and that no one can interfere in it. Last, I'm not going to go too technical, but I think it's an interesting piece that I'm going to be showing is the future, where we're heading in terms of improving the electrical infrastructure for the chargers. Since we're talking about fast DC chargers such as Alpatronics, where they require a megawatt charging, currently we get from the utility the electricity and AC. Then we have to step it down to 1,000 volts, and then we have to convert it from AC to DC. But and these are multiple equipments. Schneider is right now working on bringing a solid state transformer. And what it does is at the same time, it will step down from a medium voltage load, 25 kV, up to 1,000 volts, and it's going to then convert it at the same time from AC to DC. And this is really a disruptive technology that we will see not only in this application, but in other applications, because the old mechanical electrical equipment, the open close, they have a specific timeline, let's say 10,000 operations. When we're talking about solid state technology, it means power electronics. We're talking about resistors, so they can do unlimited open and close operation, and that we will see it in other industries. So if industries are not, companies or technology providers are not jumping on that wagon, they can disappear literally in the next 10 to 15 years. So this is quite exciting. So interesting also for utilities of what is coming up for us. And of course, by doing that, well, the footprint is smaller. You're going to have higher efficiencies, etc. I'm going to close it quickly. I hope the timeline is still good. As a last slide, there's a flagship project. Let me know if you see my screen. Yeah, there it is. So there's a flagship project that we've done in the U.S., in eastern U.S. in Maryland. It is the largest bus depot with on-site generation, where a fleet of buses, they could recharge their buses. We're using Heliox. Then we're using solar panels. We're using, of course, a microgrid solution by Schneider Electric, where we're also integrating solar panels, batteries. And exciting is we're currently in the phase 2 where we're installing on-site hydrogen catalyzer to produce green hydrogen to fuel some of their fleets that do use hydrogen. Why it's an exciting project? Because the Transit Authority didn't have the funds to do that. They had a lot of outages also in their region. So Schneider was able to finance the project through energy as a service. And the term as a service, we will hear it more and more in our industry, and it's quite critical. No one can do everything. So that project was done in a consortium. We brought WSP as an engineering firm to help us on the design to achieve this beautiful project. And I will end it with this. And thank you. So I will pass it on to you, Paolo.
Thank you so much, Michael. 1 second, we switch. Okay, thank you so much. And now is the time for Gabriela. Gabriela, she speaks very well Italian too. So,
proverò.
Grazie mille. Grazie mille. Gabriela by 7gen. Thank you.
Sono molto felice di essere qui e poter introdurre un po' di 7gen e di progetti che stiamo sviluppando qui in Canada. Parlo un po' l'italiano, posso anche parlare un po' rispondere un po' delle domande dopo in italiano, ma farò la presentazione in inglese, è un po' più facile da fare i termini tecnici in inglese in Canada anche. So we started in English. Like I really would like to thank you for your time. Just to start, like I would like to introduce about what 7gen is, like what the term 7gen is about. 7gen is actually a term from the First Nations. It's inspired by the First Nations in Canada. It comes from the 7 generations principle, where we see the worldview that considers the interconnections between air, land, water, animals, and we can learn from the previous generations and meet the current needs without impacting our ability of future generations to meet their own. So we can learn with the 4 generations like behind, and this is going to impact the future generations like successively as well. A little bit about me. I've been with 7gen since pretty much we started. We are a Canadian-based company. Right now we are headquartered in Quebec, Canada, but we started originally in Vancouver, British Columbia, where I'm based. I'm the director of infrastructure at 7gen. We started pretty much like when we had like 5-7 people, and now we are growing in Canada as well. Like we're becoming more and more recognized by what we're doing. I my degree in terms of engineering, like I'm an energy engineer. I worked like more than 10 years like in the renewable space, and I've been helping projects like and also worked like for Eaton, Schneider, and other companies like in Canada, US, and Brazil. I'm also a member here of the Electrical Mobility Canada. It's a key group that really develops and makes forward like all the task forces around the regulations, other utility advancements, charging infrastructure, and vehicle developments like in Canada. Also part of the Women in EV group and the UL groups in Canada that helps like with certification and women presence and diversity into this segment. So what 7Gen, like what is it coming from for 7Gen? So what we hear a lot from people, like in the origin of the story is like we hear a lot from people in Canada and North America in general that the transition to EV is very complex and costly. So it's preferable to stay with ICE trucks, ICE vehicles, and not start initiate those movements. And what we see, like, and we recognize in speaking with fleets, is that they actually don't know where even to start. So there's a lot of complexities around. It's not only changing the vehicle component of this. There is also the charging infrastructure. There is what vehicle works like to my fleet needs. There are the upfront capital costs, like what can we actually select, like what banks, like what financing, what sort of like capital do I need to start, like for the infrastructure in the vehicles, and what sort of operational impact in regulatory uncertainty we need to navigate through. Most of our customers on the fleet side, they're not ready necessarily in terms of understanding all of those components to initiate the transition to electric. And when they see themselves, they are starting to work with not only the transportation component of that, but also all the power distribution and all the fleet management, facility management, and logistics, which is much more than their actual scope of work, which is delivering goods to people, delivering people to places. So I'll just move here. How 7Gen comes into the space here, we're not only an infrastructure provider, we are an EV as a service, as what Michael mentioned earlier here. We try to simplify the whole portfolio, the whole breakdown of challenges that the companies, especially fleets on the medium heavy duty segment, face to support them with a simple and affordable solution. We come pretty much like with the idea is that like we will procure the vehicle, procure the charging infrastructure, understand their needs of the customers, and design and tailor agnostic solutions for our customers that they can actually decide and choose what to do. Since we started in 2021, we have grew a lot. Like we have more than 100 charging stations deployed today, and more than 300 vehicles deployed on the road in Canada today. We're also moving that to our operations to the US today. So we have a few sites deployed, and we're moving and accelerating our growth into the US as a next step. We're currently backed by Siemens and Fonds de la Solidarité and FTQ. And we have been getting more and more recognition since the start of the company with a lot of awards and innovation in the field as well. Here, I just want to mention a little bit about what is driving the fleet electrification in Canada, that from our perspective, and where we want to capitalize. And we see that as a really turning point in the fleet management in general in North America. Just in 2025, we see 22 billion, just in terms of the amount of revenue we have around vehicles, chargers, and carbon credits altogether. We also touch base in this discussion here with my other colleagues. And we are anticipating 2030 a growth up to $100 billion as well here. Just not counting, this is considering vehicle charger hardware, not considering infrastructure specifically as well. And what we see a lot is that the first ones to get there, will get to benefit on the actual incentives and accelerate their operations and start making money faster. So we want to really create that sentiment of FOMO, that we say here, which is really fear of missing out. It's something that we want to make sure that clients are not just stepping back and wait and see. They're actually ready to make the decision today to continue evolving that. And what we try to unblock is what we know about the fleet electrification, which is driven by stricter government regulation, ambitious corporate climate goals. We see a lot of companies are setting up, especially goals coming from Europe, economic parity with ICE vehicles, and the availability of more models available now in North America and being produced here as well. And just so you have an idea in terms of the total cost of ownership, that's usually a term that we're utilizing to compare and guide our customers in terms of the transition. If you're taking like vehicles that are manufactured, produced here, for example, the GM Bright Drop versus an equivalent ICE truck, you can see that you can save much more in a short time. Like with all the maintenance and repairs reduction, the cost of energy is much less in Canada. Thanks to the hydro costs, like and the best tariffs that we can discuss as well, and the vehicle lease component of that. Oops. So how does it work in terms of our products and our subscription? We do the vehicle leasing program, so we're OEM agnostic. We offer consulting around that, feasibility and advice, and flexible financing solutions. The way that we finance today is a lease to own. That's our primarily product, which means that you can get that, you can own the assets at the end of the leasing term with almost no residual value like associated to that. We also charge leasing and maintenance, like so tailored and optimized charging solutions. Like we will work with the best available in the market today that are not only feasible technically, but they also can service the chargers locally, like so that we remove the headaches out of the fleet, our customers today, so that they can focus on what they do best, which is their business, while we can focus best, which is making sure that they can continue electrifying and charging their vehicles. Another component associated to our offer is the fleet management interface. So our customers can also see all their logistics, like their vehicle chargers and the charger data, all that like in their backend, and they can integrate that to allow a better predictability and analytics for the reporting. And lastly, the customer service. Like we're also very proud to offer 24/7 customer support. We also do carbon credit generation and monetization for that. Whenever it's needed to generate an additional source of revenue for some business that they can do and they meet the criteria. We are very much data-driven in terms of the decision-making here and trying to favor more and more our customers to make decisions to accelerate. Few of our customers here, you will see that behind most of those names, like we have a lot of what we call the 3PL partners, like our third-party logistics. So a lot of companies that are actually, they own their corporate fleets, but they also work with owner operators, like so independent drivers that do the delivery for them. Like so, we support both. We support both the corporate vehicles and the corporate deliveries and their needs, charging and providing solutions at their depots. At the same time that we also help and assist the independent drivers that are that they usually work like even for multiple of them here associated. We also have, and it's not showing here, but like it's a new thing. We also focus on the school buses in certain provinces here in Canada too, and some other enterprise fleets as well. And as I said, like in terms of our presence, like we are pretty much like recognized as thought leaders in Canada. We're pretty much present in Quebec, BC, Alberta, and some other Atlantic states as well. We have like chargers deployed, vehicles deployed and running, like customers satisfied like with that. And more recently, we're trying to focus our growth priorities in the US. Like our focus is going to be on last mile, and our expansion are specifically on the states that we see a lot of opportunity around the incentives, like in terms of the West Coast and Florida as well. So I just want to mention that like as a last component, like if you're thinking about investing or bringing businesses like to Canada, two things that to look for is those two angles, like in terms of regulatory incentives that we also touched here, but also in terms of product certification, especially if we're developing a new product or is established product in Europe. What we see is that the companies that they understand better the Transport Canada and related consumer acts here, that they understand the bilingual requirements as well, specifically in Quebec, like I'm talking about, and they understand the carbon credits and how they work and how they can leverage that here. They are gaining more ground like faster as well. We also talked about a little bit of the incentives available. Most of those incentives will always call for some sort of product certification or some sort of presence in Canada. So that's also very important to stay very close attention to those requirements and work directly with those governments to try to influence also like on what their position in terms of their RFPs. And lastly, in terms of just product certification, be attentive around like the Canadian Standards Association requirements, the certificate, UL certification. We had so many cases that we wanted to use German or Italian like components, and we couldn't use just because they were not certified or they're not ready to be used. They would take longer time than actually using products here. So this is also an important piece to take a look at. And lastly, Measurement Canada as well. Measurement Canada is an organization in Canada that audits the price per kilowatt, like or what you can charge, and provide a better understanding in terms of what you're actually getting out of the charging stations and the accuracy of data. So it's very important to be compliant to the actual standards here. And also like work with authorized partners per province. That's also a differentiation that we have. We work with partners locally that understand the local regulations, the insurance, and they can provide the best quality work too. I'll just skip here. And the last thing I want to say here is just a case study around like the DHL. DHL has been a customer of ours like for so many years. This is one of these, like, I think it's already out of date because we have launched recently an Ontario site with them for another 20 level 2 chargers. And it has been a really interesting experience working with them because we can work with a variety of types of charger stations, from level 2s to level 3 charger stations. They receive a lot of requirements from Europe, and it's very interesting this collaboration between those two segments here as well. So a lot of products that are utilized in Europe, like we are trying to certify to make sure we can provide a better product and a strategy for them here. And it has been great to see how we are evolving this partnership all along. I think, so if you have any questions, let me know. There's a scan here. You can take a look at what we're doing. And I will stay in touch. So grazie mille.
Grazie Gabriela per questo tuo intervento. Ora abbiamo qualche domanda per i nostri speaker, intanto che prepariamo la postazione per Michael, l'ultimo nostro speaker della giornata in programma. Quindi abbiamo una domanda da Alessandro. Dice, do you think the business of EV charge will get the same trend both AC and DC? Quindi, se volete, if you want to give your brief quick answer, do you think the business of EV charge will get the same trend both AC and DC? So alternative current and direct current. So maybe that means the level 1 and level 2 versus the level 3 supercharger.
Okay, I can start. I think it really depends on the segment that we're talking about. What we see a lot is, and my colleagues probably have more experience on the public charging side, but what we see a lot is on the fleet side, especially on what we call here like class 2, class 3 trucks that are small minivans or vans that are pretty much for 200 kilometers, they're what we call return to base. We see a trend on level 2 pretty much, that's the charger that we see growing a lot, and charging at their depots or charging at home. So for those criteria, we usually see that growing because just in terms of their needs, that's what they need, they will be using. So overnight charging, they return to base, their deliveries are done in a certain radius in a predictive manner so that they can already plan, and it's usually low cost, so it's also good to pick up in terms of volume. But that said, we also see a growing need for DC fast chargers also for backup. charging, especially for bigger trucks, like class 8 that we say in terms of drayage operations, port terminals, that we have a large turnaround that we need to charge in 30 minutes. Like we see this growing as well. But I think like on the public charging side, like my colleagues would contribute better as well. So.
Yeah, I think essentially, both segments are both technologies, both level 2 and level 3 will see growth. I don't think it's an or, it's an and. If you take, for example, in the passenger segment, most of the charging sessions will happen at home because it's cheaper. But essentially, the key thing to look at is the dwell time. So how long is the vehicle parked and how long is available to charge? The longer that it's available to charge, for example, overnight at home, overnight at a depot, means, let's say, the slower charge you can have, so you can go more for AC charging or level 2. The less time you have, so either you're on a cross-country trip or you're going to shopping at a supermarket for 30 minutes or whatever, where you have less time, means the higher power you will need. So essentially, both markets are growing. I think the number of ports in AC will be much higher than the number of ports in DC, and that's essentially a function of dwell time and, of course, cost. AC charging points, you can get an AC charging point at home for something like $500. DC charging points, the high-powered ones at 400 kilowatts and above, you're talking more like 6 figures, right? So there's quite a big difference in the cost. So it all depends on the dwell time and the use case of the vehicle.
I think it's well covered. The DC is, we would say, it could be more interesting, specifically when you want to integrate on-site generation. This way you can connect on the same electrical duct bus that we call directly, be it the solar panel, be it the battery. So that will definitely help in the future for scaling up. But I think it was properly well explained. So I'll keep it to this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other question? Please expand on the prosumer solution and what opportunities are there related to that technology. Prosumer solution.
Yes. Thank you. So what can a prosumer produce? It's energy, and that what we're seeing right now is to facilitate the generation of power at home. So in the US, more specifically in California, now we just open it up also in Texas and 9 other states, a package where you will have the charger, then you will have another box where you have the typical electrical distribution, where you see all these breakers, but it's a smart one. So it is connected, that it will recognize what is the load being transferred to every component within your residential house, how much is demanded by, let's say, the charger, and then it's also easily connectable to other components that could be in a package, which is a battery and an inverter. So this way you can connect if you have a solar panel on top of your house. So all of that could be packaged. Schneider does offer that solution. I think I can maybe put it in the chat if someone wants to go and see this. So this is a solution currently available that has been running in the US, and hopefully we're going to start seeing it across other regions here in Canada and hopefully in Italy soon. Hope that answers a bit the question. It's as simple as that. It's these few elements that can permit someone to produce energy. Now, something to keep in mind, that energy will be used only for the residential. It will not be re-injected to the utility. Otherwise, there's going to be other elements that we call harmonics that will distort the utility line. So we're not there yet. Right now, it's only for managing the energy for your own residential house. With time, we're going to see it in other applications. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I just want to thank you all for the opportunity. Unfortunately, I have to go to speak at another session, but certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone today. And email, so feel free to reach out. Email. I'll have my email, and I'd be happy to answer questions from the utility perspective. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Jason, for your collaboration. Thank you. Prossima domanda. Una domanda per Mike. How do you think to face the fast market growing in North America, specifically in Canada? Before you said that it would be an issue, how to understand, how to manage all the data to collect for the connection, for the loading, unloading, and that is part of the equation. So how you and your company think in the next 3-5 years the market will grow, and how do you think to structure that growing?
That's really a great question, because as I mentioned earlier, the growth at Alpatronic was really unexpected. And if you go, next time you go to Bolzano and you look around, you'll see that actually our offices are quite spread out in the town of Bolzano. So manufacturing is in one location, R&D is in another, the headquarters is in another building, and that's really a function of unexpected growth. Now, in the US, we said, hey, let's take the learning from Europe, and we know that if we do the job right, if we're able to produce our chargers with the right quality that we do in Europe, then the growth will come. So we did things such as, planning ahead in our offices. So our office building today, we're probably using around 20% more or less of the total square meters that we have, because we said, look, we're going to need this space in the future. Let's invest now. We don't want to have to spend time in the future finding another building. We'd rather work on business. Another thing in the manufacturing line, today we invested for the capacity that we need probably in 2028, 2029. So we really invested early. Again, another learning. We know that if we do the job, then the growth will come. So we wanted to also plan ahead for that. I think the point on the data is also very interesting. This is I think fairly unique to Alpatronic, and as we're having over 110 million sessions of vehicle charging sessions of data, we use that for our product improvement. So we're actually able to look at patterns. So if we look at certain vehicles, for example, maybe having interoperability issues, we can look at certain grids, right? In certain municipalities, we can look at things like temperature. So we're able to look at really the fleet level of our charger to understand, are we seeing some trends that maybe are issues that we can solve? So I think the data thing is very critical for us. Then finally, now, even if moving to the US, we moved at a time of high growth in Europe. I think that we're also focusing internally in the company on preparing for the next stage of growth. So that means, working on standardizing processes across the company, working on communication between entities, and, getting the ISO certification. So all of these things are really top of mind in the company now, and we are working to make sure we have the right structure in the place for the company to make the next step of doubling the business, hopefully again.
Thank you, Mike, for the answer. Now is the time for Michael Colpit. Thanks to be here with us today. Everything good? And connect.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, excellent. Can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. No, I've got my microphone tethered to my phone because my computer misbehaves typically when I try to use it. But yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and my apologies for showing a bit late. I had this plugged into my calendar as occurring tomorrow, and so that's my oversight, and my apologies for that. So my name is Michael. I work with VinFast, and I lead all of our charging activities in the North American space. And primarily, I think about the business, or our charging business, as an automotive OEM who's trying to serve our clients as existing in 3 separate buckets. The first bucket that I think about, the reason that I came to VinFast, is the public charging bucket. And so this is how do we remove the friction, or how do we make seamless the ability to connect clients wherever they are to the charging services they need to complete the journeys that they want to complete. So that's sort of the out-of-home charging bucket, or the out-of-home charging pillar. The second pillar is in-home charging, customers who charge their vehicles in their houses. How do we service those customers? How do we defragment that entire experience? How do we make it easy for them to understand what hardware they need, what is involved in an installation, and how to walk them through the process of integrating that charging asset or that charging hardware into their home so they can have easy and reliable services. Certainly, we don't expect that all of our customers are qualified electricians. Most people have no idea about the electricity running from their electrical panel to their oven, and we shouldn't expect them that they would know about the electricity that moves from their power panel to their home charging equipment. And so, yeah, the second pillar of the business is really how do we make sure that we're servicing those customers in an intelligent way? And then the third pillar of the business is how do we serve our own business in an intelligent way? What are the efforts we're making in infrastructure, in installation, design and deployment of chargers at our buildings, at the facilities that we own, at the facilities that we lease, our port properties? Of course, all of our manufacturing is overseas. And so we're bringing ocean liners from Southeast Asia into the western seaboard of North America. So we have a variety of port and logistic properties on the western seaboard, which we need to ensure are ready to receive our vehicles, charge our vehicles, and then get them through our logistics partners in our logistic channels so we can get them to point of retail and customer ready and in as expedient a fashion as possible. And so that is the big three: customer charging out of home, customer charging in home, and then what are we doing for those use cases where charging is actually in service of ourselves, of our business and our deliverables. In terms of what I know about charging in the Italian space and Italian companies, there is very clearly a maturity of the charging marketplace in Europe that does not yet exist in North America. And so I think it would be unintelligent for me to sit here and spend time advising Italian companies how to make hardware, what to do about hardware. But I thought what might be helpful is an explanation of what does the marketplace look like, or what does the ecosystem look like in North America? How does it compare and contrast to what exists currently in Europe? And what opportunities could Italian companies utilize to, I guess, harmonize or make more complementary, I guess, all the players in the North American space in the same way that the European space has managed to find itself in. And so what I'll do is I'll share my screen. I've just got 2 slides really quickly to explain what the charging ecosystem is, who the players are, and where we see kind of gaps in the marketplace in North America as compared to Europe. So can everyone see my screen okay? Just want to get a nod. Yeah, super. Okay, great. Yeah, so these are kind of like the big pieces of the charging puzzle. So starting on the very top right, you've got your charging station owner. The charging station owner is could be the operator, it might just be the real estate owner who is deploying the charging system. And that system is often remotely managed by the charge point operator, the CPO. So a CPO is Shell. A CPO is, in the North American context, Flow, or Couche-Tard, large operator of charging services in both the EU marketplace and in North America. So who's the company that is operating the charging system, and how do they take agency over that hardware? So Alpitronic might work with CPOs in order to sell their hardware into these CPOs so that they might operate them. Alpitronic also might work with a consultant service or a construction service that is working on behalf of a large real estate holdco that is looking to install their chargers for their own benefit. So there's your charging station owner level, your charging station operator or CPO operator level. Moving left, you see mobility service provider. That's really the space that VinFast exists within. So what are we doing to collect all of the service from the station owner, all the services from the station operator, and make it very, very simple for our customers, our EV drivers, the last component on the top left of the picture, to access those services in super seamless or super frictionless way. So this, again, kind of gives you the layout of the kind of the constituent pieces of the ecosystem. And the next slide I'm going to show you is going to show you all of the technology or the communication protocols that exist between these players. So on the, again, looking at the far right of our screen here, DSO, that we have to think of that as the grid. What is the electrical grid? How does it deliver electricity to the hardware? How does it deliver electricity to a given site so that a charging point operator or a charging station or a charging network might make use of it? The EMSP, moving next to the left, that is sort of, again, the space that VinFast operates. How do we exist between the CPOs to stitch together all of their services and make a very simple, hassle-free interface for customers to access these services? Of course, the CPOs are connected to their EVSEs, their hardware that they operate, and then the EVSE connected to the EV driver. And so this is hopefully illustrative of what the ecosystem is like. The ecosystem is this way in the world in general. It's just how do the different markets utilize or make easy operations within this ecosystem? And so something that the European market does very well is they understand that the concept of roaming is the best customer experience for charging, whereas North America is lagging behind in that area. And so what is roaming? Roaming is basically groups of CPOs that work together to share services across their various platforms. So I could be my own charging network. Paolo could be his own charging network. I could have customers log into my service and also access Paolo's services. Paolo could have customers logging into his interface and also sharing to me and my services, his customers. And that is how Europe works. Roaming is really sort of the law of the land. You can access multiple networks or multiple operators through singular interfaces. And that's not what you find as a rule in North America. We aren't as mature in that way. And so how do companies do that? How do you share the services broadly across multiple providers? And this is what we call OCPI. It's an open charge point interface. So it's a technology layer that exists just above the CPO, and it allows the CPO to share all the information about their network and their service offering broadly to anybody who wants to accept it. So myself as VinFast, as an EMSP, I'm collecting OCPI signals. So I'm collecting all the information from all the networks. I'm cleaning it, making like harmonizing it, or making it non-unique. So everything exists in a singular interface or a singular marketplace so that customers can access it there. And so to the extent that companies observe OCPI standards and OCPP standards, this is really the critical component to seamlessness as automotive manufacturers think of it. If you observe OCPP and OCPI protocol and standard, and you implement it effectively so that all of your services are able to be stitched together, not just within your own home, but across multiple other nodes, then that makes it much more straightforward for manufacturers like me to receive your products, to receive your services, bundle them into my ecosystem, and then very simply and efficiently direct my customers to them. So, and I think, Gabriella, we've talked about this in the past, to the extent that you can nail down OCPP, to the extent that you can nail down OCPI, to the extent that you can nail down ISO 15118, which I'm sure you've talked about in your talk with Alpatronic, as much as you observe those protocols, as much as you ensure that you are engineering to those protocols, your products will be more widely accepted in the North American marketplace.
Thank you so much, Michael. And the last one?
Yeah. I'm happy to take questions.
Oh, yeah, of course. Few questions again, and for all of you, so it's up to you to give your answers. Alessandro is asking, V2G technology would be a must-have built-in feature in every EV charger, or still too early?
I can answer from the hardware manufacturer perspective. The chargers that we're building, well, certain chargers are having the hardware ready. So that means that we are, let's say, future-proofing from a hardware perspective. Doesn't mean that we enter and develop all of the software piece yet. but at least from the hardware side, we're making those no regret investments. And that's typically for the lower power DC. So these are the use cases where it's like school buses or overnight depot charging, which we talked about, where the VTG is going to be important. For the higher power charging, that's typically a use case where the VTG is less important. So yeah, we are definitely future-proofing our hardware to be ready, because to the point I think earlier of Michael, my colleague here, it's not yet there, right? So I think it's more about how do you prepare for that in the future to not have to rip out a charger and replace it, but rather have it ready to go. So when the use cases come, the hardware is future-proofed.
It is one thing I just want to add is not only about V2G from the charger perspective, but also like we push on the OEMs to make sure that they are also fitting to the protocols. Like they also need to ensure that it's also V2G capable on their backend. Like it's a software, charger, hardware, and beautiful combination that needs to all work together. Also, and I'm sorry, like Jay's left here, like Hydro, but he also have some inputs around the actual local regulations in terms of provinces and how this is evolving. We were collaborating very closely in one of the projects in BC for tourism buses, like in BC. That's a pilot project that we were talking together. It's still a little bit early, but it's happening. So it's very optimistic to see that this is something that people are seeing more and more value in. The business cases is already making sense. So just want to add that.
Simone Valeriano. I'm Simone Valeriano from Hypermeteo, a company specializing in high-resolution weather and climate data for strategic and operational applications. Your company use weather and climate data to support energy demand forecasting?
The answer is yes. It depends on the application. So if we're talking about a fleet of public buses, well, definitely that will be taken into consideration. All of this data will be collected. So when we assess what will be the route of the bus that specific day, what will be the current situation through the environment, how will the bus react, and from there will be a sizing of the charging of the battery. And this is usually done by the smart charging management system, what we call the CMS. It has the capacity to collect that. And then they can size the battery and provide it. So on one angle, it is leveraged there. I would say from an energy management piece at Schneider, when we install a microgrid, again, there's the weather factor that we take into consideration. If we're, let's say we want to store energy in batteries, we need to figure out if we have enough solar, do we have enough wind or other source of energy. We can predict, so this way we can keep in the battery more energy to manage the demand required for the buses or any EV, let's say.
Thank you. Anybody else? Answer about the weather? Okay. The final question, maybe for all of you, just a second, a minute to answer in order to close the webinar for Italian Friends today. So could be very basic question, but important for the Italian public. So how do you think Italian potential supplier could find opportunities and partnership in the Canadian market? Of course, in this environment for concerning EV infrastructure.
Well, I think just to answer for Alpatronic, the formula that worked for us is that we started first with the customer base that we had in Europe, including in Italy, companies like Enel. Of course, everyone knows Enel in Italy. So we worked with our customers in Europe and came to the US. So we actually started with the customer base already. We didn't have to go out and find new customers, but we started first from this base. And I think that was something that really helped us to get into the market quickly because the customers knew us already, they knew the product already. So it was a matter of just adapting the product for the US market. That was super important. I think also now given the current political environment in the U.S., I think we'll start to see new flows open up between Europe and Canada, whereas those flows may have been previously between the U.S. and Canada. So I think that's also another huge opportunity for European, including Italian companies to look at. And you can probably imagine that we're also thinking about that ourselves. So yeah, I think starting with the customer base and existing customer base that may have operations in the U.S. for us was the formula.
I do believe, well, to second what Mike said, this opens the opportunity for Italian companies to either enter the market through technologies or being as fleet operators and coming in strong, not, let's say, going through the pain of going through that transition from ICE to electrical vehicles, but coming in strong directly with that. So there are opportunities there directly. And I would say another angle that could be interesting is the financing part. Of course, total cost of ownership is a big component, specifically on the capex. So that also can help the situation. And then the rest of the current ecosystem, which is the government, the utilities, contractors here locally, and engineering firms, they're quite strong. I think then it opens the door for these other angles.
Gabriela, final word.
Yeah, I'm giving mute here. But yeah, like I think what we experienced, at least in the past with European companies, is that the technology seems to be, at least like, from our perspective, on smart meters, controllers, charger hardware, like electronic here, I think all of those components and electrical components and the technology, the R&D piece in Europe is quite advanced. Other models as well, like for charging on the road, like in terms of just like the cables, parts, accessories that usually are not super they're overlooked. Like it's something that is more and more needed, like, and more important in the market here on the charger infrastructure side. And also like keep an eye also in terms of the partners and how you get into the Canadian market as well, in terms of who do you choose to partner, who has actually the local footprint and understand the actual regulations and codes and details. Like that's going to expedite immensely the overall process. Like, we've seen that, like we've helped also some of our suppliers like to actually advance their products towards Canada. That primarily they had only deployed that in either in Germany or in the US, like starting the US. So I believe that's also a use case that can happen with Italian companies too. So.
Thank you so much. Michael, if I remember, you had very nice experience with Italian companies in your past. And what do you think about the interaction with, and the opportunities for Italian firms in this domain for EV charging in Canada? Because we are Canada, you have experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, there we go. Sorry, it's just a bit of feedback on the microphone. I think all these questions, whether it's a couple questions ago, the attendee asking about B2G, or this question about how do Italian companies make inroads into the Canadian marketplace, I keep coming back to the point I made in my presentation, which is ensuring that you are identifying the standards which govern the operation of the product or the software that you are working with, and how do you ensure you get as close as possible to that standard or to that protocol, and how do you prove that you are integrating it or implementing it in an effective and streamlined way. And so there are all sorts of companies out there, both in the European Union and also in the North American space, that can help with this. Companies like DECRA, companies like Mobility House, companies like Keysight, different companies that will assess hardware against a certain set of standards that the industry expects, grade the hardware or the software on the operation, against those standards and those protocols, and then really provide Italian companies or any company for that matter with a report card of how that product functions. And that report card is the golden ticket for any company that wants to make inroads in the North American space. Secondary to that would be monitoring all the different subsidy programs. So the big one in the United States is NEVI, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Fund. It's about a $5 billion pool of money. A significant portion of it has been distributed already, but there's still a fair amount of cash there to access. In Canada, keep an eye out for ZVIP, the Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program. Keep an eye out for the CIB and the CHRI program, so the Canadian Infrastructure Bank and the Carbon and Hydrogen Refueling Initiative that they operate. Taken together, the CHRI and the ZVIP programs are another $1.5 billion or so worth of subsidy monies. And so if you think of it in the North American context, I mean, you've got more than $6 billion, less than $7 billion in federal monies pointed at EV infrastructure. I mean, this is a fire hose of capital, right? That it's there for the taking, provided that these companies, whether Italian or Asian or North American, if they can abide by the standard, engineer to the protocol, get the ticket that says yes, we are confident that we are going to operate according to standard and according to protocol. That's where you will make big inroads. And how do I know this to be the case? You can look at any sort of data set which looks at like function of the EV industry or specifically charging. How do we grade ourselves? What are actual customer experiences on the ground? And so the number one reason in North America that customers refuse to entertain an EV purchase is because it's perceived challenges with charging, whether at home or on the road. If you can get a customer captivated and you can bring them into a showroom, the number one reason they leave the showroom without purchasing a car is perceived challenges with charging that can't be overcome. And then if you get a customer into an electrified vehicle and they're out there and they're driving it, the number one reason they leave an electrified vehicle and go back to traditional combustion is because of experience challenges with charging. And so the JD Power EV Experience or EV Ownership Study is a fantastic study, and it ranks charging operators and charging services on what is like a 0 to 1,000 scale or a 0 to 10 scale on how they operate, what is their resiliency, what's their customer experience. And the best score is a 7 out of 10. Some of the largest operators are 4 out of 10 scores in EV experience studies in terms of the resiliency or the reliability of their networks, customer experience. Do customers anticipate that when they arrive at a given service that they will actually have a successful event, that their car will be filled the way they expect and they can get on the road to their destination? These are terrible. These are terrible, terrible scores. And the industry locally in North America has to confront that. And the way that we fix that is ensuring that the hardware that we are introducing to this ecosystem is well engineered and is set to protocol and is ready to be deployed and serve customers the minute it goes in the ground, because that's not the case today. The data proves it. And to the extent that an Italian company or any company for that matter can step in and say, this is our hardware, this is our software, this is the standard, it's engineered to it, it is plug and play, and your plug-in success as a consumer accessing that service is 90, 95, 99% plus, you will access all of the funding money that's available and then some. You will attract massive private investment from these companies that are operating in this space, because right now we don't do a good enough job in ensuring that services are ready to be delivered. And so the companies that can push that agenda forward are going to have tremendous success. And I think Alpatronic is a great example of that, right? I mean, you see their uptime, their resiliency in the European space. There's a reason they're coming to North America and they're making inroads quickly. It's because the hardware is reliable, people know how to use it, it's plug and play with their existing tech ecosystems. And as customers recognize that these services exist in given networks, they will gravitate towards them because they know they're going to be reliable and they're going to offer success.
Thank you so much, Michael. Nice comments. So we are almost at the end of this experience, and we wish to thanks a lot all the participants, all the speakers at the event. Starting from Jason, he left a few minutes ago for another events, and of course from BC Hydro, Michael from Schneider Electric Canada, Gabriela, 7Gen from Vancouver, of course Mark from Alpitronic, half Italian, half US American and Canadian very soon, and of course Michael from VinFast. I represent the car user, so the final user of the EV infrastructure. Thanks a lot for your presence. And voglio ricordare alle imprese collegate che metteremo a disposizione materiale del webinar, il PDF delle presentazioni, le domande e i contatti degli speaker al più presto al nostro sito gareappalti.ca. Vi manderemo comunicazione. Quindi vi ringraziamo per la vostra presenza e arrivederci alla prossima attività. Grazie.